1 minute, everybody out there, and we're just waiting on one more member to join.
Sorry,
Thanks
my
for coming.
computer started updating.
You're good. Thanks for joining us. I know you got a lot going on. Yeah, so I am pretending to be Stan for this meeting. Don't look exactly like him. So yeah, Sustainability Advisory Board meeting, call to order, and we'll start with some housekeeping items from Kathy Richardson.
Good evening, everyone. Just sharing a few housekeeping items for tonight's Zoom meeting. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. Please remember to mute yourself during the meeting when you are not speaking. The chat function for this public meeting is disabled. All chats will go directly to me. All board members, please keep your video on. All others, keep your video off unless you are participating during the meeting. And if you have any trouble, you can send me a chat. The city reserves the right to mute people or turn individual videos off to minimize distractions during the meeting. And a reminder that there is another board meeting tonight, so we ask that the meeting wrap up by 7:15 p.m. And now I'll turn the meeting back to Ben.
Thanks, Kathy. So for the first element here, we want to welcome and allow Dawn Hawkins, our newest SAB board member, to introduce herself and maybe just say a couple of words about yourself and your participation in SAB, which has been ongoing even though now you're officially a member. So welcome.
Hi guys, thank you, and thank you to Mayor Larson for nominating me and for approving my position. I've been coming to these meetings since long before the pandemic, so I guess it's nice to be an official member. I've worked at KU for a number of years. I'm soon to be retiring from that position and taking a new position with a nonprofit organization called fractracker.org. I don't represent FracTracker in these meetings, but just a little bit of insight into things that interest me and what I have going on in my career. Hope I can be of service to the board.
Awesome. Welcome. We're glad to have you. So the first order of business for our meeting today is to approve the minutes from our May 10th meeting. So hopefully everyone has had a chance to look those over. Did anyone have any, do we need to have any discussion about that? Does anybody have any edits or comments on those meeting minutes?
I looked over them and they look fine to me. I recommend that we approve the minutes as written. This is Kate Johnson. Sorry.
Awesome.
Nancy Muma, I'll second.
Okay, Kay moves, Nancy seconds. So if I remember how this goes, can I just have everyone that's in support with a vote of aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And everyone, how does he say it? Everyone in the opposite, the same thing? Okay, unanimously approved. I can't remember exactly how Stan says it. It sounds very eloquent in the moment, but yeah. Thanks very much. So the main staff items we have are a report about facilities tour opportunities and some other sustainability items, as well as the letter of support that was part of your package tonight of us continuing to advocate for a sustainability analyst to help support Kathy in her department.
Sure. This is Kathy Richardson, Sustainability Director. So I did jot down some notes for our report out tonight. I don't have the slides, but I will go through a few items. So first of all, just kind of a recap that there was a copy of that letter of support for the sustainability analyst position that was submitted with the agenda packet on May 16th to the City Commission. So that was the meeting that Mayor Larson had mentioned to you all would start the conversation about the budget. Now, budget conversations are just getting started, so there are going to be multiple City Commission meetings where budget will be discussed. If any of you are interested, I would, recommend just kind of looking at that budget schedule. And if the Sustainability Advisory Board, wants to put forth, the letter of support again or any other items in consideration of budget discussions, that's important for you all to discuss. Then in regards to the tours, so we're narrowing down some dates for August and September. And the dates that work best for the facilities and operations and the staff are on Monday and Friday mornings. I'm hopeful that some of those dates will be good for you all as well. But I'll send those dates out. It's going to be broken down into two different tours. So one tour would be water and wastewater facilities, and the other tour would be HHW and the compost facility. So like I said, Mondays and Fridays, we know that, it's hard to get, on the schedule with all of you, but we're hopeful that we can find a date that the majority of you can attend so that the staff isn't breaking these down into 3 tours of the same facilities. We're hoping that we can get the majority of you through in one tour, of the water, wastewater, and then HHW and compost. So I'll be sending those dates that looked good to the staff groups. In addition to that, just since our last meeting, we had the Sustainable Capital Projects Policy that went in front of the City Commission also on that May 16th City Commission date. And that policy was approved by our commission. So it is effective January 1st of 2024. And we're already working on kind of the specifics of implementation of that policy. Also, since the last meeting, we were in front of the City Commission for the single-use plastic bag ordinance discussion. So Nancy represented the Sustainability Advisory Board, and as staff, I just kind of gave a overview and background, and we did have the City Attorney's Office available to answer questions as well as our planning staff. So this is an agenda item later in this meeting, so I'll kind of hold some of those comments of what's happening kind of moving forward for that agenda item, and I'm sure Nancy's got some items to discuss also within that. So Lead for Cities, really no other update than what I had reported last month, that we were selected for it and we're going through that process for the sustainability framework. The electronic recycling event occurred on May 13th, and we had over 800 vehicles and about 66,480 pounds were collected of the electronics. So that Free State High School facility, the parking lot worked out. It was very congested in the first 2 hours of the event, and then it thinned out a little bit. But definitely high participation for that. And then we're, as staff, discussing kind of how we move forward with events in the future. I had mentioned the Douglas County Open Space Plan at the last meeting. So some of those community engagement opportunities have already occurred, and there was a lot of great participation at all of them, at least that I had attended and also heard from our county staff. So that process is underway for the plan. Also, the Douglas County. Yep, go ahead.
Sorry, this is Kate Johnson, SAB board member. I just wanted to say before we got too far away from it that one of my colleagues, my work colleagues, participated in the electronic recycling event, and she said it was fantastic. She also gave me some recycling materials, and she thought they were really good. I don't know if you want to send those out to the SAB for our use, but she thought they were really good. She put them on my desk afterward. But I really appreciate you all doing that.
Sure, yeah, thanks for that.
Kathy, what's been the general, I know it's changed a little bit, especially with COVID, but the goal in terms of the frequency of those events, if possible, is annually or semi-annually?
Sure. So at the very beginning, the start of hosting the electronic recycling events, we were hosting them twice a year, so in the spring and the fall. And that's when the City of Lawrence Solid Waste Division was hosting them. A few years back, that event got transferred over to our joint Douglas County City of Lawrence Sustainability Office staff. And actually, I believe the first year probably would have been 2020, which was the COVID year, which disrupted, as you know, many events. But, they were hosting one event a year, getting a lot of feedback from the public that it needed to increase in frequency for sure. So we've definitely been hearing that. And then this spring, as I had reported, was the first year kind of in our split of joint offices where the city took back the event. And so this was our MSO environment staff that organized it and, figured all the logistics with the vendor. And so, it was kind of getting back into this type of event. And I think that there are a lot of additional conversations that need to happen as to the future of this event and how it's hosted and frequency and so forth. Okay. So in the past, we did have a really great location, central location with the KU parking lot, but that is no longer available as there is construction going on there. So that was the reason for Free State High School. And actually, we looked at the fairgrounds, but there was some highlighted concerns from the vendor with that location. So it definitely seems like, especially because of that high attendance at the beginning of the event, that something maybe larger or more doable with traffic control or more frequent events could potentially fix that.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. I think I was just going to say a few words about the Douglas County Climate Action Plan. So we have received a draft, and we meaning the staff advisors group. So within the Climate Action Plan, there is a staff advisors group that was formed and then a steering committee that was formed. The staff advisors has representatives from the county, the City of Lawrence, Eudora, Lecompton, Baldwin, et cetera. And then the steering committee is the committee that, like Nancy, is the rep for the Sustainability Advisory Board and has other community members as well. So the first kind of step of the draft being reviewed is through the eyes of staff advisors that are maybe just helping refine it a little bit more. And very soon, we had a meeting today to kind of go over and get feedback from staff from different areas of operations and within cities and counties. And very soon it will then be released to the steering committee, and we want it to release the steering committee before it goes public, because the steering committee is also helping us shape and clean it up and make sure that it looks good as it moves forward to being released to the public. And then we're going to have a time frame where the public can submit feedback or questions, concerns, et cetera, for that. And then the steering committee, the staff group, all of us will, kind of consider all the feedback and questions that were raised and, kind of work on a new draft of that. And hopefully by the end of the year, then we have that final draft for for the county commission to consider adopting. And then from there, potentially the cities that will be next in line to adopt that plan if they so choose to. So just wanted to say a few words about that since there's a lot of activity going on. It's not yet released to the public, but it will be as soon as we can get the steering committee together to review that as well. All right, I believe those are all my updates for right now. Like I said, I do have a little bit more on the single-use plastic bag ordinance bit, but I'll wait till that agenda item.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Kathy. This is Ben Sykes, Vice Chair, SAB, I guess. Up first on our core agenda items tonight are to get updates from the myriad subcommittees and boards and committees on which we serve or are representatives of SAB. And in connecting what Kathy was just talking about, if we could start with Nancy, if you could provide us an update on the Climate Action Plan Subcommittee and maybe also the Douglas County Climate Action Plan Steering Committee.
Okay, so but the last time we met, we discussed and prepared for the reports that were going to go to the city commission on the plastic bags that we discussed and prepared some slides that they ended up not using. But anyway, we prepared that. And then Kay brought up an issue that she sent out to Kathy this afternoon, and Kathy forwarded that regarding the homelessness issue. And I don't know if we want to talk about it now or later, but that was something that we talked about at the last meeting of the Climate Action Plan Subcommittee. Do you want to talk about it now, or should we wait till later? What do you want to do?
That's the item that's on the agenda.
That's the item that's on the agenda. Yeah, so.
I'd like to wait till the
That sounds like-
agenda item.
Yeah.
So it is okay, so it was there. All right. The only other thing is that we were told as the Climate Action Plan Committee that we would be getting the draft of the plan on this Friday. And then in 2 weeks on, let's see, it's the 29th, the steering committee is going to meet in the morning. So I will share the draft with everybody if in the subcommittee, and we'll discuss it and have feedback. Kathy, is it okay to share it with all the committee members here, the SAB members?
I believe it would be okay to share, but there really cannot be any back and forth discussion at all. So that's kind of what I'm a little bit nervous about if you send it to the whole board where you have a quorum. If you send it to the subcommittee, you are good to, again, have your subcommittee meetings and discuss and in detail. So that would be no problem with your subcommittee.
Okay, all right. And the only other thing then is we discussed the possibility of having another member on the subcommittee. We've lost a couple of members, so that's the other thing we discussed at our last meeting.
Did you add another board member? I believe you were going to ask Amanda.
We didn't ask anybody, but we discussed having another member. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's definitely. It's definitely something that board members that feel strongly about the particular subcommittees that we have are welcome and encouraged to join those things. But also there are aspects of those subcommittees that grow based on the interests of the members that are on them. So if you feel like the issues that are important to you can fall under particular subcommittees, joining them and making them your own is strongly encouraged, I would say.
Yeah, so if we have any volunteers, of anybody who would like to join the subcommittee, right now it's Kay and Mosen from this group, and then we also have Terry Wilkie, who's an outside member.
So
Amanda, Dawn, does anybody want to join? Ben?
Nancy, are you on that committee already?
She is.
So if we
That's what I'm
have,
talking about, is the subcommittee that I chair.
yeah, how many SAB members can we have on a subcommittee before we surpass?
Four,
Have-
right?
You can have 5, 6 is
Oh,
quorum.
five.
6 is quorum.
Yes.
So we can have 5 on a subcommittee. Okay, cool. I'm going to personally, this is just Ben speaking for Ben, I'm going to try and push through the weedy stuff first, but I would be happy to contribute to it as a ad hoc member or some other words like that. Yep. Well, I think people that are interested, if we can't twist arms right now, can ask questions about it later.
Amanda's.
Oh, Amanda, did you have something?
I was just going to say I will consider it. I have potentially thrown my hat in a couple other rings that I'm waiting to hear back on, and I don't want to sign up for more than I can give attention to. So I will follow up
Okay,
on this with you. Thank you.
thanks, Amanda.
I'm interested. This is Dawn Hawkins. I'm interested in joining that subcommittee.
Great, okay. I will
Brilliant.
keep you in the loop for the next meeting, which should be in the next couple of weeks.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dawn. Okay.
Thanks, Nancy. So this is Ben Sykes, SAB Vice Chair. I'm going to give a quick update on the weeds and noxious weeds and sustainable landscaping ordinance recommendations we made. So this subcommittee met on May 25th and had quite a productive discussion, I think, about splitting out the elements that we've received feedback from City Commission on that need to go into the development plan, and revising the ordinance based on that to kind of look at if we can't push it through, if we can't have it accepted in the form that we perceive all of those items to be linked, if we can take individual portions of that and get them across the finish line. And I think we can make perhaps more progress that way than continuing to try and hold them all together as we see them. So one of the elements of that is thinking about whether or not the lowest hanging fruit seems to be the ability to change the city's list of noxious weeds, which was part of the original impetus that the public brought to us about why these changes needed to happen, from an quite extensive list actually that the city has, well beyond what the state and the county has listed as noxious weeds. So I don't know, Kathy, if you wanted to say anything about that at this point.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, so I did attend the subcommittee meeting, and so with this particular item, I am working with a staff group to look through that list and what we can do to update that list and get an amendment to that city code.
Great. Beyond that, also as recommendations from Commissioner Sellers and other city commissioner members, I've been trying to meet personally with other people, community groups that might have interest in this item. So yesterday I met with Linda Watts from the NAACP to talk about the item and how the NAACP community might perceive some of the elements that we've recommended in there and what changes we can make. And one great suggestion she had was to engage the Indigenous Community Center, which also coincidentally had given a presentation recently at the Douglas County Food Policy Council, which I'm the SAB rep for. So I'm going to reach out to them and see if we can also have some connectivity there and get, just more input from more members of the community, particularly those that are poorly represented usually in these kinds of things. That's pretty much all I got on that subcommittee. For the Douglas County Food Policy Council, we had a meeting this last month I wasn't able to attend that was focused on a Healthy Kids Initiative, KC Healthy Kids Initiative. The connectivity with SAB, I think right now is strong around discussions of agrivoltaics and other elements related to renewable energies in the county, and how those, in certain instances, might be competing or with agricultural conservation and things like that, particularly prime soils in the region. And so I think there's an opportunity there to work together. I think there's interest from the Douglas County Food Policy Council side, because many of them are very supportive of renewable energies, and I think it's an important aspect to not see that as conflicting, but there's ways forward that can work together. So I don't know if any I know several of you have like way deeper interest than I do in the development of renewable energies in our local area, and I think that there's strong interest in how we can navigate that, collaborating with them or creating subcommittees, or maybe it falls under elements of the Climate Action Plan Subcommittee. That's all I kind of have from the Douglas County Food Policy Council. So beyond that, Kay, did you have an update from the Land Development Code?
You're muted.
Sorry about that. Kate Johnson, Sustainability Advisory Board member, and I am a committee member for the Land Development Committee Steering Committee. And we received a project module, and that module will be reviewed and discussed on Thursday, June 29th from 4 to 6. And there's another date, which is July 20th, so I'm not sure if we're going to get two different modules. The first one was Module 1, and it's on the zoning, the zone districts and the uses. And we did get that material last week. I have not had a chance to review it. It's like 35 pages. And it goes extensively through the different zones and the uses that each zone can have. They were trying to simplify that the current land regulations are really complicated. And so this whole effort is to try to simplify it and be able to get projects through. And there's been a visioning process. So people were asked to provide their comments on what they wanted the community to look like. And so that is also part of that first module. And if anybody would like to see that, I'm not sure where if there's probably a link where they've posted these, and there's an actual website for the Land Development Code update. So I can send whatever I got to Kathy, and she could put those in the meeting minutes. And then if you want to provide input to me, then I can provide that to the community or for our meeting, our next meeting, or you can come to the meeting. And the meetings are open to the public, and you can provide their input. Several of the community members that attend our SAB meetings regularly have been participating. So it's okay if you want to add one more meeting to your schedule. But we have really, I would really like, Ben, if you would send me the parts that you feel like need to go on the weed ordinance that need to go into the Land Update Committee. We're not at that point,
Okay.
But I don't know. I want to be able to know where it needs to go. So if you'd send me whatever you're thinking about, that would be helpful to me.
That's no problem. I guess I was going to ask if you can understand yet where the intersection is with things like the open spaces plan for the county. I mean, the city is having questions about how they're going to make a development code or how they're going to update it, right? But where's the communication between the city and the county in terms of how those visions are different or how they get agreed to?
I don't know. And nothing has come up in any of our meetings about the open spaces plan. And although I know that people were encouraged to look at the open spaces plan and comment on it, it seems to me that there should be definitely even a roadmap on how this would do it. And they haven't done any of that. And, I really wish all of these plans were not in silos. We've got the 40 plan, the strategic plan, we've got all sorts of different plans. And it's hard to keep up with all of these things.
It's hard for most people, I think, to pay attention.
We're trying, right? And we are knowledgeable about them. And so, yeah, I can't even imagine members of the general public even knowing where to provide input. That's all I have, really.
The last update that we had was me pretending to be Stan on the Boards and Commissions Structure Committee. And so just to remind everybody, the committee is currently recommending the realignment of approximately 15 boards into 6 new boards. They're currently recommending that the Sustainability Advisory Board would remain separate and not be consolidated with other boards. But the city is actively seeking feedback on the committee's proposals. And there's 2 engagement opportunities for everyone out there that's interested, including all the SAB. The first is an in-person activity tomorrow, June 15th at the Carnegie Building. Carnegie?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, from 5:30 to 7:30. And then there's a second one, if you can't make it in person, via Zoom on Friday, the 16th of June, from noon to 2. So both of those are opportunities to engage about the reorganization of boards for the city. If you can't do either of those, or even if you can, there's also a digital questionnaire right now that's available on the city's website and is available till the end of the month. And so, yeah, just again, anybody that has time or energy that wants to weigh in on how important these things are, please participate either in the engagement opportunities and or the digital questionnaire to express how you feel about the current recommendations, including that the SAB should be maintained as a separate board.
So, Ben?
Yep.
So this is Kay Johnson, SAB board member. How do we get the links to those, to the Zoom? Where do we find that? I mean, that's another issue when we find out about different things, looking and finding those Zoom opportunities.
So I think there was a website before that Stan had pointed us to. I don't know.
So
Is it on the community engagement page?
This is Kathy Richardson, the City Sustainability Director. I did send an email to the SAB on June 2nd with a few of these community engagement opportunities that were coming up, like the open space. There is a link on here for the realignment of the boards and commissions. But yeah, if you go to the city's main page, actually, it looks like I gave you a link to that news release, which takes you to the page for the information, the city's website. So that was on June 2nd. But all our community engagement is listed within our main City of Lawrence website, and you can click on community engagement and see this one in particular.
And I really would encourage you, this Kay Johnson SAB member, to go on there and at least provide some written comments if you don't participate, because Stan has really worked hard to try to keep us as separate, and the city commissioners need to see that we're supportive of that. I've heard complaints from the other groups that are getting combined with others. Mm-hmm. So this is a real opportunity for us to be a standalone, continue to be a standalone voluntary City Advisory Board.
Just to add, it looks like the digital questionnaire is available until June 30th.
Yes. Yeah, this is Ben Sykes, SAB Vice Chair. I just wanted to reiterate too how to get there for anybody that might know. If you just go to the city's webpage, in the bottom right, you'll see community engagement. And the first thing of the active community engagement on your left is board and commissions realignment. More information. Thanks for letting me share there. And down here at the bottom is the engagement opportunities with both the Zoom link and the digital questionnaire. This is the document that's the proposal here. Sorry if you can't see that here where it says here. It's blue. I absolutely agree with your point too, Kay. Great, so I think that's all of the updates from our subcommittees.
You have some public.
Yes, I was just going to say, if we have a few members of the public here, if anybody has points they want to make about those reports, we'd be happy to take them now. So I see Michael Allman has his hand up. We'll go here first, and then we'll go to JT.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Oh, good. I'm not Mickey Mouse today. Ben, the report you gave on the natural landscaping and noxious weed subcommittee, there was one item that we discussed I don't think you brought up tonight, a very important item about having the city legal department look at a moratorium on enforcing the 12-inch rule for, that decrees that anything over 12 inches is a weed. So I'm wondering, where that discussion might be going right now with the city legal department. That's my question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michael. I appreciate you bringing that up. I had forgotten about that element update here. So is that something, Kathy, that can be asked as well of city legal? I mean, so the discussion in our subcommittee is essentially that rule for managed landscaping is currently not being enforced in many cases. And the question is whether or not the 12-inch making everything noxious weeds a moratorium could be put on that while we're doing these revisions and coming to some sort of recommendation.
Sure, yeah, the question has not been asked. I can absolutely ask that. That kind of action item I took away from there was just the weed list revision, but I can ask this question as well.
Thank you.
I thought we weren't moving forward yet with it.
Okay. Yeah, JT, please.
Hi there, can you hear me?
We can, thanks.
I've talked to you before about this board of boards. There is an in-person meeting at the Carnegie tomorrow. It's a 2-hour meeting. If you go there and you should want a bike, where are you going to park a bike? The Bicycle Advisory Committee and the Traffic Safety Commission, years ago now, it's been about 5-6 years, were both dissolved and a new body was created called the MMTC. This was a major setback for bicycling. That is the reason that I am so keen on this issue and why I've spoken to you about it before. The most important outcome could be of this initial round of public comment would be to say, I don't understand this. I mean, if as sustainability members, you're going to be satisfied with a standalone committee, that's great, but there are implications, other implications for these other bodies that I don't believe are good. I think the most important thing you could point out was this realignment's being modeled after one that was done in Bozeman, Montana. Here's the paperwork on it. They had 3 public engagement opportunities spread out over 3 months. Okay. Basically, this initiative here is going to be one big day tomorrow, and then an online survey, which is those who've taken it aren't very, very happy with it. So Stan made the observation when this, at the last meeting, when this public engagement was being discussed, he said, most of the people that come into the Carnegie building are, first of all, not going to know what the strategic plan is all about. And so first, they're going to have to be given the context of the strategic plan and this consolidation in relationship to it. And in connection with that, the city manager, Craig Owens, he admitted that even his staff do not all understand the strategic plan. So we'll see how that goes. I think I'm going to attend the whole thing and the whole 2 hours and see how many people show up.
Yeah, thanks very much for your comment. It sounds like also based on that previous model, besides I don't understand this, is more opportunities for engagement. Is that a kind of a critical piece for to voice there, based on what you're saying, JT?
I agree.
This is Kate Johnson, SAP board member. I'll also say that Stan had said as part of that, they were looking at probably making a goal of not allowing more than 7 people on each of those committees. So that further eliminates voices. And I did hear from a person of color that was concerned about that, because that generally typically moves those folks down further on the list of being heard and considered. So I think it's really good that you brought up the bicycle issue, because I thought Lawrence was pretty considerate about bicycling, and if that has gone away or is going to go away, that's something that our committee should make sure that doesn't go away.
Yeah, great point.
One more quick comment.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
I have been contemplating for many months now, coming before you about the systematic disaccommodation of cyclists by the denial, the delay, and the degradation of bicycle parking. One of the folks that I just met recently over here on the east side said to me a couple of days ago that their teenage son came home from the library really shook up and unhappy, because while he was in the teen area, he looked out and there in broad daylight, someone was trying to rip one of these crummy bicycle racks loose to steal his bike in broad daylight. The most recent example is at the Santa Fe Depot. There should be a bike box there. And instead they removed those 3 regular racks, and when they reinstalled them, they just put them in with nuts and bolts. Give me a box end wrench and I can have one of those free in about 4 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks for that. As a person that rides bike a lot, I appreciate that. Yeah, Michael, quickly, and then we have, I think, a lot of discussion about the plastic bag ordinance, if you don't mind.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to that too. Just following up on what John said about how Lawrence is not very ardently advocating for bicycle transportation. Lawrence has a reputation for bicycling, but it's recreational bicycling. It's people, in parks or on trails. They put a bicycle in the back of their SUV and they go out in the country, or they go to the Lawrence Loop, have a lot of climate emissions driving there. And this is supposed to be an environmental mode of transportation. Well, it's only recreation and they don't care about the climate. Bicycle transportation, on the other hand, is for people of all ages and abilities to get from one destination to another, for work, to the library, to City Hall, to stores, things of that sort. Practical utilitarian transportation. And Lawrence is way behind most peer communities as far as bicycle transportation goes. And it's a matter of funding, and it's a matter of the strategic plan puts bicycling in the recreation department. It doesn't put it in MSO. Bicycling in the strategic plan is in the recreation department. So what does that tell you? So Sustainability Action Network's been working on this for years, literally years. and very little progress. So I appreciate everything John does for this too, and SAB. So thanks for the time.
Thank you. So let's move on to the update on the single-use plastic bag ordinance that we had in front of City Commission on the 6th. So Kathy, can you provide some?
Yeah, this is Kathy Richardson, the City Sustainability Director. I did want to give some updates, and then Nancy, if you want to also kind of share your insights with the experience of the presentation to the commission. But just really quickly, so we did, like I mentioned, present the single-use plastic bag ordinance on June 6th to the City Commission. And really the action steps from that meeting are to make some revisions to the ordinance based on the feedback that we received from the City Commission, which did include adding the Sustainability Advisory Board's recommendation on the 40% post-consumer recycled content on the paper bags and also the reusable plastic bags. So the Commission did confirm that they would like that added, and they had a few other points of clarification. So currently our City Attorney's Office is working on those edits, and the Commission did ask for it to come back to them on June 20th. So we are still working towards that timeline to get it on Commission for next Tuesday. And how it would be posted on Tuesday's agenda is as a consent item for adopting an ordinance on first reading. So consent agendas don't have the presentations, but we are absolutely going to be prepared to step up to the podium if a member of the public or a member of the commission does pull that item off of consent. And we can answer any questions at that point as well, if there's additional questions or feedback. Otherwise, the commission would be voting on it for, like I said, adoption on first reading, and then it would need to go on the next City Commission agenda for adoption on second reading, and then it would be approved and, go through the process to get finalized. And again, the ordinance currently as written is effective date of January 2024. So that's how it's proceeding on to next week's agenda for a consent item. And the one section I wanted to share is we've had some discussions, and I know Kay and Nancy have also provided some examples. Oh gosh. Am I sharing?
Yes.
Oh. Okay. Let's see if I can bring it forward. Nope. All right. Well, I don't need to see it. It's okay. You all see it.
We see it.
Okay, awesome. So this is a new section that is addressing some of the concerns that were brought up in questions from the commission, which are, what are some exemptions? And I want to make sure you all can see this list and give me any feedback if any of these items you do not want to see listed under exemptions, or if you feel like something is missing from this list. So currently, who it shall not apply to is religious and charitable institutions, schools, not-for-profit organizations, farmers markets, the sale of live animals such as fish, insects, or the like, prescriptions, newspapers, laundry, dry cleaning, or garment bags. And the produce bags and product bags was already something that was exempt before, that you all saw. So there's something here that gives you, yeah, Nancy.
I don't know why we would have to exclude the farmer's market. It's easy to take a reusable bag to the farmer's market, done it many times.
That one was, Go ahead.
If it was something like a produce bag with, it could fall under that, but you wouldn't need to exempt the farmer's market. And that was already brought up by the lawyer, right?
Yeah, one of the commissioners brought up that they had received several comments or questions from the public about the farmer's market. So in the sense that when somebody shops, and goes to the different farmer stands, that it's almost like a produce bag, I suppose, is how or what I heard or viewed it as. So they're wanting to make sure that they can put their vegetables or fruit or whatever they're purchasing into, its own bag. Again, this is for discussion for you all, but it was brought up by one of the commissioners based on feedback from the public.
So this is Mohsen Fatemi, SAP board member. I'm thinking why schools is here. Schools is where we educate our next generations and our children. And isn't it where they should learn not to use plastic bags?
This has been Sykes, SAB board member. I am also concerned that schools includes the University of Kansas, which is perhaps a massive hole in where we're making bags and things as well. So everything that comes out of the student unions and everything in the food services that's coming out of KU could potentially fall under a school's exemption. Apart from the inspirational thing that Mohsen laid out, which is we want to inspire the next generation that they don't need to use these things all the time.
This one was also brought up by the commission. I'm just kind of giving you that input. So again, and maybe we need to kind of make it a little bit clearer as to why it's important that they're not exempt.
So is that, sorry, this has been Sykes. So is that, Kathy, something you would perceive as if we did not include these exemptions, if we, as the SAB, do not recommend including all of these exemptions that have been laid out, that we need to be ready to defend that if this gets pulled off the consent agenda?
So at this time, we're working on this draft, right?
Okay.
And the city attorney's office has provided this information that you have in front, just to look at this list and make sure we got it right. So, and just so you know, they built a list based on that feedback they were receiving from the city commission. So all the edits and the feedback they received from city commission is what they're trying, the city attorney's office is addressing in this. And, but they are asking me and you all, like, are we getting this right? Is this the list? So.
Thanks.
If we need to make some edits, we certainly can. But again, based on if we didn't address one of the concerns the commissioner had, then that might be a question that we'll have to, explain further why we didn't include, something they asked for.
So I'd like to address that issue. I think when we were at the meeting, the issue regarding schools was if they were giving out something versus selling. So if they're selling things, they said that, yeah, we should go ahead. And the same thing with religious and charitable institutions. If they're selling things, then the rules should apply. But if they were just, giving away like cookies or some little thing, then that would be an exemption. But if it was actually for a sale, that would make the difference. That was the way I interpreted what was discussed at the city commission meeting.
Okay.
And I wonder if we could include something like that here.
Okay. Do you feel that there's other categories under that same concept, or looks like all the rest are? Well, farmers market, there's still a question there.
Yeah, and not-for-profits would be similar, but they're not selling anything, so I guess no.
This is Dawn Hawkins, SAB board member. I wasn't at that meeting, and so I don't know the reason behind all of these. The only thing I see on this list that you can't use a paper bag would be a bag of fish. Prescriptions come in paper bags these days. Produce bags, there's recyclable material produce bags already offered at grocery stores. I agree with Mosen very much about this, about schools. I don't know, I just don't see why these exemptions are necessary. And maybe dry cleaning garment bags. I don't know if there's an alternative to that, but that and a bag of fish from the pet store are the only things that I can perceive that you couldn't use something besides a plastic bag. Just my 2 cents.
Okay.
Okay.
So, Kay Johnson, SAB member, I will put my code enforcement hat on, which I did for about 10 years when I worked for the city of Wichita. It is really important that we try to help the city of Lawrence identify what is going to be covered, because they're going to be put in a situation, their code enforcement people are going to be put in a situation where they have to make a determination. The D through H to me are definitely, I feel like those should be exemptions. The other thing that I tend to agree with Nancy on with respect to the religious and charitable institutions, schools, not-for-profits, and farmers markets, I like the idea of saying at the point of sale, because that way, that is a clear area that they're not going to get some spurious complaint because some teacher handed out some bags or something. This is all going to be complaint driven. It won't be, the code enforcement people won't be going around looking at these different things. It's going to be complaint driven. And if you have a real clear way to give some exemptions, I did hear myself the concerns about schools and churches and the farmers market. So if, farmers market, clearly that's they're there to make sales. But it probably just needs to be identified a little bit better with the farmers market, and then the point of sale for A through C, I think would be really helpful, because then if some teacher or some not-for-profit is giving away things, that's one thing, but the point of sale is what we're really trying to address. That's my 2 cents.
So since this is exemptions, how would the language look? So D is a good example of the sale of something. The first 3, at least, what we're talking about is exemptions when they're not for sale, right?
Right.
So, however that...
Maybe you take farmers markets out and more carefully describe it. Is there a farmers market definition in the code? I can't remember.
There's not.
Well, I think we can also remove the prescriptions, because the prescriptions clearly can come in a paper bag, as most all of them do.
Some of the ones I get do not.
I was going to say,
But they
Amanda,
can.
SAP member, the liquid prescriptions come typically also sealed in that plastic bag.
Okay.
And that's the only thing that I could think of that actually has that plastic bag. But
I actually get a pill form in plastic bags.
But it could come in a paper bag just as easily.
I guess, yes. Sorry, this is Ben Sykes, SAB board member. I guess I'm just thinking too, like, in this case, not letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. Like, if we're talking about prescription bags, we're still talking about the prohibition of probably 99%, right? And I'm not saying that they shouldn't. I'm just, if that's a strong pushback from the public, what's the proportion? The proportion of bags that each of these exemptions represent is an important aspect here, right? Like the sale of live animals is probably a very small proportion of the plastic bags in our community. And yeah, like Dawn said, I don't know how to get a fish home in a paper bag yet. Maybe there's a way, a very thick paper bag or a box, fish box. And nobody wants a newspaper that's soggy. I will say that one. Like if they throw your newspaper on your front lawn, that's probably the pushback people had there. But sorry, those are just my opinions. I liked what you guys have laid out about the point of sale versus giving things away for the other three.
So what I've gathered in my notes to discuss with the city attorney's office is if there's a possibility that A through C can clarify that it's at, if it's point of sale, that's when it's, they would not be able to distribute plastic bags, but in all instances, it's exempt. And then for D, farmer's market, really kind of defining that if it's a produce bag used at the farmer's market, then that's exempt, but not like a bag to put, carry out, or, I don't know, put all the items you pick up at the farmer's market, if there's a possibility to distinguish those two. And by the way, the commissioner did mention kind of that idea of like, when you're in the farmer's markets, like you're in the grocery store. And so you're using those produce bags. And at the end where you check out, that's the bag that's being, discontinued or banned of distribution. So they're trying to figure out how some of those bags that would be considered like produce bags are still allowed within the farmer's market. So we'll see about that. And then I'm looking at D through H, as you're all saying, those are okay? All right, those are my notes. And Amanda, you have some?
Oh, I was just going to say, if produce bags, though, are an exemption already, would they not be an exemption for farmers markets? I mean...
Right. That's I think the point of conversation is, can we just put that like under the produce bags and address that concern that one of the...
I guess I have another thought, because I know several farmers, right? And a lot of them actually take the bags that they get from the grocery store now and use those. So it's not like they're using new plastic bags, but often secondhand plastic bags. I don't know if there's a way to define that or if it matters.
Okay.
I think this
As long as they're not
prohibition...
getting new ones.
Pardon, go ahead, Kay.
I was just saying, as long as they're not getting new ones, if they're bringing themselves.
It would still be plastic bags that they're giving away at the point of sale.
Oh, so, sorry, I misinterpreted. So Amanda, you're saying
I did too.
farmers bringing bags that they had already and at the farmer's market using those. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of them, I mean, the ones that I know that if they have to are using whatever the Dillon's bag. They might have a box of recycled bags that they utilize versus having a box of brand new bags that they're pulling out like grocery stores do. So I don't know if there's a way to, I'm sure there is a way, if it matters as much though, to define not secondhand bags.
I don't think we should do that, because then it gets into really muddy territory with respect to any place that has these single-use bags. I think we better stick to it with the way it is, with just the produce and the product bags.
It was just a question. I'm not going to fight on that one.
Just my 2
curious.
cents.
No, I appreciate all the feedback. I think I have good notes to, address with the city attorney's office tomorrow and make sure if we can make some tweaks here. Also, looks like the alphabet ran 2 Ds on this list, so we'll need to fix that for the ordinance. But no, I appreciate it. If anyone else has a thought tonight, that comes tonight or tomorrow morning, just shoot me individually an email and let me know.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathy.
I just want to say that I'm going to be out of town next week, and could somebody else from the SAB attend in my place in case there's issues that they pull it out of the consent agenda that come up to represent the SAB?
I would normally volunteer. I'm also going to be out of town next week in Chicago. So I'm not able to.
I don't know if I'm going to be available. Right now, I was not planning to be.
I'm also in San Antonio next week.
It's a week of travel.
Sounds like Kathy's going to be on her own.
Stan may be back and could contribute to that
Yeah.
conversation.
Or Mosen?
When is it going to be exactly?
Next Tuesday at 5:45?
Next Tuesday, 5:45. I guess I can make it.
Great,
Okay. I just write it down to remember that.
thank you.
Sure.
Great. Also, there was a member of the public that did write us a comment about plastic bag recycling that if you didn't get a chance to read their letter that they submitted is, I think, an important piece of this conversation on why prohibition is perhaps needed. But with that, let's move on to, let's see, the last piece here for old business is Ordinance 9744, an important priority, which...
Ben.
Oh, I'm
Michael,
sorry. I apologize. Yes, Michael Allman, please.
Hello, once again. Hey, great discussion. As I recall, at the City Commission, a lot of the determination of what falls into what category, exempt or not exempt, had to do with a monetary transaction, a formal transaction, not some teacher giving away cookies. So somehow I think the wording of the ordinance needs to be clear that this only applies, and calling it point of sale kind of gets there, but not quite. In the definition of produce bag and product bag, and this is the issue that Commissioner Finkeldye brought up about farmers markets, that the definition of the bags we're talking about are not what is used in the store brought to the, as it says, point of sale, which is a checkout. It's not those bags. It's the bags that are used to take it from the point of sale out to your car or your bicycle or wherever. Whereas with the farmer's market, that stand where you use that bag for lettuce or whatever it is also the point of sale. That was the conundrum. You follow me? So if it can be written in a way, I mean, I would like it just to say produce bags and product bags are exempt and eliminate the farmer's market because it's redundant, except for that wording in that definition referring to point of sale. And I can't think of how to reword it off the top of my head. So I hope I'm clear of what I'm talking about there. The other big concern I had, like Ben pointed out, what proportion of plastic bags do any of those exemptions represent? And when I see dry cleaning bags, those bags not only are for every product that comes out of a dry cleaning establishment, every product is in its own bag, and they're big, they're really big. I don't think that should be exempt. And the final thing that Ben brought up about KU as falling under schools, strike them, put in there, schools are exempt except for KU or something, but that's a very important issue. I think you're right on there, Ben. Thank you so much. Great work over the years. Thank you.
Awesome. Do we have any other members of the public that wanted to speak on this? Awesome. So hearing none, we'll move on just quickly to 9744, the renewable energy goals implementation. Kathy, do we have any updates on this, or did anyone from SAB have any updates on that implementation?
I don't have any updates. It looks like Kay.
Yes, Kay, please.
I have a question, and I know that there's two things on this. One, there was supposed to be a report made regarding the activities and achievements each year, and I know Kathy was at least working on that at one point. But also, where I heard the mayor at our meeting say there's no plan yet for achieving this. So what is the plan? Who's working on it? Who's it is assigned to? You know, a lot of the problems that I see with the various organizations is that there is no plan. This has not been considered citywide in the departments. We've had several issues, and I'm going to talk about one later, but what's the plan? That's my question.
Sure, oh, Amanda, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add to what Kay said. I think that it would be very beneficial, not just for the SAB board, but for the community to see what the city is doing, whether that's the list of the efforts that are being made or the ongoing projects. That way we can see the progress as it's happening or even beforehand. I mean, I know that USD 497 has an RFP out right now for solar. I would love to see that information brought to all of us as well. So that way, and I mean, the energy efficiencies and all the other things that they're doing. I know that we have people applying for grants for these projects, and I would be very interested in knowing what we're reaching for as well.
That's a good point. Thanks, Amanda. Is that more work for you? That's you, Kathy, right? If we ask City Commission to do that, then they're going to say, okay, Kathy, can you do that, right?
Yeah. So this is Kathy Richardson, the City Sustainability Director. Like Kay mentioned, the ordinance does refer to an annual report. So that is something that hadn't been done in the past, and I am trying to get that information in a report format. In terms of what we're doing right now, as you know, there are a lot of pieces that are moving forward that are based on this Ordinance 9744. All our work towards the sustainable capital projects policy was to address Ordinance 9744, and that was a lot of work. We've been working on that for about a year to get that through, and that administrative policy that was just approved last month with our City Commission and will be implemented at the beginning of 2024. I know the Sustainability Advisory Board received a presentation earlier this year with a consultant that we're working on, or two, with the transition plan for fleet vehicles. Now, these two items that are have definitely taken up a lot of energy from our staff to work on, are only addressing, our fleet and our facilities. So this is not addressing that community-wide goal that is also included within our 100% renewable energy. I did include in that because I also heard the mayor talk about the need for a plan and implementation, so I included that in the minutes. I know I've talked to this board about some of the funding that we have allocated for the EECBG grant, which we did submit our pre-award information. It's about $147,000 that's allocated to the city of Lawrence. lines. And we've been having some conversations of how we can turn those funds into a full comprehensive plan of how this community can be able to implement and the pathway to 100% renewable energy, not just within our city operations and our city fleet, but just community-wide. So a lot of communities have these plans that the mayor was kind of mentioning. They're like energy plans. They're usually not done in-house, but a consultant will step in to do a lot of that work. I've kind of been in conversation with a couple that have had some of these plans completed, and these are like potentially $100,000 work plans or project plans. So we're looking into that as an opportunity to maybe get some outside help in what that pathway would be, and more information as it comes about. I do know that the EECBG funds could be used in a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of need for energy efficiency within our facilities. So that's a lot of good money also to put towards some of our facilities, like some of the communities in Kansas City region are doing. But we feel like we might get more bang for our buck by having a kind of a more in-depth plan to be able to carry this community through to our goals. That's a little bit of update. I know it feels a little bit like patchwork right now, but like a lot of the moving pieces that are occurring right now are significant in the sense of having some policies in place to start factoring in that sustainability, energy efficiency, et cetera, into our projects right now. And Amanda, I know you mentioned that USD 497 has some work as well. I do think that getting our stakeholders and partners in this community together, not only the USD 497 but KU and others, to have a conversation about how we can move towards this goal. The City of Lawrence cannot mandate that the other organizations follow this ordinance, but certainly I think that we can come together to have good conversations and collaborate and see how it can be done.
Dawn.
Dawn, yeah.
Dawn Hawkins, staff board member. Kathy, did you say in a recent presentation that there's a consultant hired to help us get there and implement this ordinance? Or did I misunderstand what you were saying?
Yeah, there's a consultant hired for the fleet transition plan for the City of Lawrence.
Okay.
So the ordinance hits on kind of three sections: electricity, gas, and then transportation. So on the transportation side, for our own city vehicles, we did have Metropolitan Energy Center submit a proposal that was selected, and they did a presentation earlier this year to this advisory board as to, it was kind of their discovery phase where they're starting that project. I know it's the plan is nowhere near completion yet, but I can certainly get an update as to where we're at with that. And it was my understanding that in 2024 we would have the project wrapped up. And this is, not only what type of vehicles, the city would need to replace, but it includes like a risk analysis, what the cost is. And it's not just about getting, all our city fleet vehicles into EV vehicles, right? We still need the infrastructure. We don't have the infrastructure currently in our sites to be able to charge all those EV vehicles. And then, of course, there's also issues with supply. Currently, I did hear earlier this month that the city had 7 vehicles for in that hybrid category that are not going to be able to be obtained for quite a few years. They're not on inventory. So we're looking at the EV component, but we're being told that it will be about 36 months to get the EV fleet vehicles. So the plan is going to cover just timeline of transition, the types of vehicles, the infrastructure needed, what the risk is, and, especially talking about those critical functions and emergency services that the city has.
Then so it seems like we're not going to hit that 2025 goal that's in the ordinance for electricity for municipal operations. It says, the ordinance says strive for, so I don't know what the implications are. That's just a comment, not a question. But and then my next question is, would it be possible for us to get an entry related to implementing this ordinance up on the community engagement site? I think this is something that, we really need to engage the community and gather as many ideas as possible for us to achieve this.
It's certainly a topic that's been brought up to our community engagement group in the past. We don't have anything that's flushed out as to how we're going to engage the public at this point. So we don't have a plan for the public to react to or provide feedback to or anything like that. So at this time, we don't feel quite ready to engage the public without, providing, here's the pathway, or here's, and tell us how we can do that, community-wide. But I certainly see that as one of the next steps, Dawn. So it definitely is something for the near future. We just haven't been ready for it yet.
Anyone else on this agenda item? Yes, Michael.
Hi, Michael Allman, Sustainability Action Network. Just to reiterate, I think what Dawn said, that these 4 categories with the target dates, it's really target dates. It's really goals. That doesn't necessarily mean we'll get there yet, but it's the target we're aiming for. I think we have to be realistic. Some of these are going to be able to be done quicker than others. But to follow up on Kay's question, Kay, I don't know if in the Land Development Code Committee that they distributed the proposals, 8-page proposal from Sustainability Action Network about a lot of different ways that the city will be transitioning. I'll send it to you and share it with you. Maybe we could talk. But
I definitely didn't get it.
Yeah, I wondered if they sent it out to all the committee members. I really wondered about that. But there are several things in our proposal, and Nancy knows about this because it came from our organization. Bikeways required in all new subdivisions. Right now, sidewalks are required. Developer has to put in sidewalks. They're not required to put in bikeways. So it's like a stepchild that gets, down the road some years later, maybe they'll retrofit one. But some more direct things that could happen fairly quickly would be, one of our items is requiring solar electric panels on all new construction. Another one is requiring solar panels on all new parking lots. Another one is abolish minimum parking requirements. Right now, developer has to conform to a certain number of parking spaces per square foot of a building, I believe it is, or per number of living units in a building. That ends up being an enormous amount of real estate covered with asphalt, which is a heat island effect as well as stopping infiltration of water. And it makes driving a car very convenient. Communities all over the country realize now that if they're going to get communities more walkable, more bikeable, they're starting to eliminate minimum parking requirements. Anyway, our document has a whole lot of these land use issues that will move certain parts, move the needle in some areas towards either energy conservation or renewable energy or both. So we need to be looking at a lot of different ways that, beyond just the 4 items in 9744. And the Land Development Code is one way to do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Anyone else in the public? Excellent. So for our last, I think, item that we'll have tonight to discuss, Kay is going to talk to us about affordable housing and energy efficiency and water conservation.
So Kay Johnson, SAB board member. And I would like to point out that Leah Roslin with the city's affordable housing group, and I'm not sure exactly if she's a director, is available and on our meeting. I'm going to summarize my perspective, and then she can talk about it later, I suppose. But to me, this kind of issue is similar to our transit issue that we had several months ago. I found out about, not that Leah was directed to give the SAB member any of the discussion about the housing and homelessness plan, but this particular plan, and you got a link for it if you had a chance to look at it, is a 5-year plan. And the purpose is to end functional homelessness in our community, which I totally understand that. This is the issue, obviously, is getting people in as soon as possible into homes. And in my perspective, I believe they should be energy efficient and they should be quality of life issues as well. This particular plan was drafted with Douglas County and the City of Lawrence, and it was set out in April sometime, and there were a couple of presentations and listening sessions in May, and then I have to say at my request, I asked them to put on at the community engagement session, a place to provide feedback, and they did. And that is evidently now closed, but what I did, there was not any energy efficiency or sustainability items listed in this 5-year plan, and to me, that's a lost opportunity. And what I did ask and recommended is that, and I'm just going to read it to you, recommend sustainable, high-performing energy efficiency and water conservation design standards in new housing construction projects for affordable and supportive housing to reduce utility cost burden, to ensure resilience and sustainability, to ensure occupant health and comfort, including noise reduction, and to reduce impacts of climate change. And Leah did provide me with feedback and basically said that this was not the place for this discussion, and did not include that in the draft, the working draft. One of the reasons that I felt like it should be in there is because there was another recommendation requiring universal design in new housing construction. So to me, if they put that in that plan, then they also should put sustainability issues in that plan. And while the comments now are closed for this particular plan for the draft, the plan will eventually come back to Douglas County as well as to the city commissioners. And I really feel like that we should be making a statement as far as Sustainability Advisory Board that this plan should include a policy. Whether it's detailed is not important to me, but something that says that the affordable housing will be shooting for a goal of sustainable development. And I would like to, that is my discussion. And so I would like to hear from other people on the SAB board. And then obviously Leah is going to want to say something, but I'd like to hear what others have to say on our board.
Nancy.
Nancy Muma, SAB board member. I agree with you, Kay. I think it's important to have sustainability, especially efficiency goals, in order to keep the cost down for those using affordable housing. I think energy efficiency and water conservation would be really important to include, as well as other sustainability goals.
This is Ben Sykes, SAB board member. I also commented on that while the comment period was still open. I think that one aspect is that it seems to present a Sophie's choice where if you have to spend one more dime on energy efficiency, that's going to mean one less dime that you can spend on building another house for somebody that needs it. I think that the problem there is that that only considers the building of the houses and getting them housed and not them having to live in the house. And over time, those energy efficiency things can make huge differences in the health of the people that are living there, as well as, their ability to stay in that housing after they're in it for a long time, right? Is that their ability to afford electricity or water when they get energy efficient places. And so I think that perspective, that's the first one that I came to, right, and I think is easy to come to, is one less dollar for another house that someone could live in, is upon reflection is not quite that simple. Amanda.
Yes, hi, Amanda, SAB board member. I was just going to add that thanks to the IRA now that there are additional tax credits available to those projects that are specifically geared towards low-income housing, and even further tax credits for those that are directly affecting those that are living in that housing. So you have your 30% tax credit, you have like an additional 10% if it's going towards the development of a low income, and potentially up to another 10% if the cost savings is for the tenant. So there's a little bit of an effort made when it comes to the renewable energy side of making that affordable for those. It still costs up front, but I would also support Kate's statement.
Any other board members that had comments? I just add one more thing quickly, Ben Sykes, SAB board member. In the intersection, since we just talked about 9744, the more intentionally we build things that already conform to our goals for 9744, the less we're going to have to retrofit things that we're building now or in the next 5 years to try and work against ourselves to get to the goals that we've set. So, I mean, this is just one small example. It's a critical one, absolutely, for those that aren't housed or that are trying to get into transitional housing. I just think that it's also, as Kay has said, it's an opportunity to kind of show our values on multiple fronts. But that's all our opinions. We have members of the public as well. Lee, I feel like you deserve the opportunity at least to talk about these things. Should we hear from the public first, or did you want to talk with us about the aspects of it that you see? Oh, you look unmuted, but we can't hear you, or I can't hear you here. Sorry.
Sorry about that. I'm Leah Richardson, Affordable Housing Administrator with the City of Lawrence. Thank you, Vice Chair. And I'm happy to address comments now, make statements now, or wait until after public comment, at your preference.
I think it looks like we just have one public commenter, so maybe we'll hear from Destin real quick and then come to you. Go ahead, Destin.
Hi, my name is Dustin Stumlingbear. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. So I understand Kay's position. I hear it. I'm going to say something right off the bat. Being dismissive of Leah while you're making comments is very rude and underneath being a board member, advisory board member, especially to someone like Leah who does so much work in this community for good. More importantly, Michael Allman spoke to it earlier. Why aren't you going in front of the building code revision group and coming up with these ideas? You just spoke to it, Mr. Sykes, about long-term. Let's put these long-term plans in place for our community, and that place is the absolute site to do it. This, as someone who's been a lifelong renter, who has lived in some very substandard housing here in Lawrence, where it made heating and cooling outright ridiculously expensive, this feels like another attack on renters from the Sustainability Board. I get your intentions, but there's a place to do this, and that would be at the building code. Make it all buildings, not just these ones. And again, I agree with you, as someone who's paid exorbitant heating costs and cooling costs, just to stay cool, just to stay comfortable in some very uncomfortable temperatures here in Kansas. And I get it, I'm with you, but we should want long-term costs that don't really damage this particular effort, because if you had made this part of your building code, you had participated with the building code revisions, then this plan would already take into account those changes. You wouldn't have to say, please consider these things, because it would already be a part of our overall code set. And so it feels like you guys are kind of saying, yeah, we could do that work, but that's work. Let's go after these individuals who are low income and try to put a limit on what we can do for them and what they can do for themselves, rather than work and have an answer for the whole community. Because as you said, Mr. Sykes, it's a Sophie's choice. It's not as simple as we want it to be. And it feels like a couple of the members who spoke already are making it seem like it's a black and white issue. So I just hope that there's a more robust discussion about this and steps that you all can take for long-term solutions rather than just this one plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Destin. Let's hear from Michael, and then Lee, you can talk. I know we're getting
Hi,
close
once
to our
again,
time.
Michael Allman, Sustainability Action Network. I appreciate Mr. Stumbling Bear's comments about the building code. That's not really exactly what I said. I was talking about the land development code. In either case, the building code or the land development code, yes, we should have more energy conservation provisions. But my point is not there's only one way to do any of this. There are multiple ways to do it. And in this case, when we're talking about affordable housing, and I must, full disclosure, I've been in discussion with a couple members of the Affordable Housing Advisory Board about this very issue. And they agree, particularly as tenants to homeowners. What Ben Sykes said earlier, that having a building envelope and mechanical systems like heat pumps, for instance, in affordable housing, it ups the capital cost, the upfront cost. That's true. But down the road, the people who are living in that house are more able to afford living there because the utilities are, you know, a dime on the dollar compared to an energy wasting home. Tenants to homeowners actually gets a percent concession on the mortgages for their homes that they intentionally build very, very well energy conserving, and in many cases with solar energy on the roof. They get that from Truity Credit Union. It's not officially an energy efficient mortgage, but Truity Credit Union is making that concession on the percent point because the people can afford to pay the mortgage. Their utilities are lower, they can pay more on their mortgage. There's all kinds of ways where this factors in to making it more affordable.
Thanks, Michael. I think we've got the hard cap.
That's all I really need to say. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. We've got a hard cap coming up, so Lee, I want to make sure to give you the rest of the time. Sorry that we're running so late. Yeah, we have a little bit extra. Kathy says we have a little bit of extra time.
Okay, cool. Well, this is Leah Ruth, Affordable Housing Administrator. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. First, I want to express my gratitude to those of you who did review the plan and gave input. The steering committee of the Housing and Homelessness Community Plan discussed it at length. And I want to assure all of you that, of course, we care about and are committed to sustainability. However, we ultimately decided not to include the recommendations in this plan because this is a plan targeted to no income, very, very low income and low income households with the goal of ending chronic homelessness. The plan does not include any market rate housing development. It is all capital A, in other words, subsidized affordable housing for very low income. It's not equitable to apply requirements that would increase costs only to affordable housing development in our community. It would actually disincentivize affordable housing development by creating additional barriers and cost to projects that already experience disproportionate obstacles to market rate development. One of the priorities of this plan is to decrease barriers for affordable housing development. And I'm sure you all have been following what's happening in Lawrence regarding housing affordability. We're in a housing crisis. We need more units on the ground. We don't have enough affordable housing to house people. And that is one key reason why we're seeing an increase in homelessness. However, we absolutely support sustainable building requirements and just don't think that this plan is the appropriate place for it to go. However, based on the comments that were made, I've taken it on myself to start advocating for the inclusion of those recommendations in more appropriate plans where those recommendations could be applied equitably to all new residential and commercial development. Those plans have already been mentioned, the Sustainability Action Plan and the Building Code. I want to just assure all of you that we are all working together towards the city's strategic goals, and I really hope that we can continue to create a dialogue that recognizes that we have shared commitments to both sustainability and affordable housing, that it's not an either or, and that a false polarization of these issues doesn't help advance either goal. But by working together, we can make more change for both the environment and for housing people. Just a couple other points that I wanted to make or clarify is that absolutely utility rates absolutely factor into housing affordability. That is a factor that's already considered when calculating whether housing is affordable. A household is spending more than 30% of their income on housing, including utilities, including insurance, etc., then it's not considered affordable. We are targeting programs for utility assistance and, again, support sustainable building designs, just not inequitably applying that only to affordable housing. One other point that I wanted to make just to clarify is that the Affordable Housing Advisory Board is not the group that is putting together the plan. It's a coalition of city, county, nonprofit, and community stakeholders. The AHAB will absolutely work with the plan and will adopt portions of the plan, but that's not the group that is that's developing the plan. But I did want to point out that the Affordable Housing Advisory Board that oversees and makes recommendations for Affordable Housing Trust Fund already includes sustainability as a scored criteria when granting Affordable Housing Trust Fund awards. So projects receive extra points for any number of sustainability components that are provided. And so in that way, we are focusing on incentivizing sustainable building practices rather than disincentivizing building affordable housing. And I'm happy to take any questions and really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all. And thank you for your service to our community.
Kathy, do we have time for, does anybody have any thoughts from the board? Right. Well, we really appreciate your feedback there, and thanks to everybody for bearing with me for not being Stan this time. But I think that was a good conversation about a lot of different kinds of topics. And with that.
You do want to open it up for public comment?
Oh, yes, sorry, we have a general public comment period, real quick. If anyone has any other thoughts from the public that are not, have not been counted for. Okay, great. Hearing none.
Oh, Ben, I do have one. Sorry.
Sure, go ahead, Kay.
Real quick.
Yeah.
The Douglas County is taking comments on the solar utility scale solar project next week on Wednesday. So I think if people are interested in commenting on that, they should be available either online or in person.
Okay. Thanks, Kay. I wasn't aware of that. Utility scale solar for the city? That's for the county.
It's for the county.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it will, you know, it should benefit us, but.
Right.
I saw that Michael had an emoji, like a heart. I don't know if he was trying to raise his hand.
No, I think he was just commenting on that. Michael did. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening. Thanks for showing up.
Thanks.
Bye.
Just making sure.